Everyone feared her anger, but no one ever asked what broke her heart enough to create it. Love is not always soft-spoken, gentle, or wrapped in warm smiles. Sometimes, love arrives bruised, tired, and afraid, wearing anger like armor. When a heart has been hurt before, it learns to protect itself, and anger becomes its shield. What the world sees as harshness is often love standing guard, unsure if it is safe to be tender again. For the stepmother, love did not come into her life as a clean beginning. It came layered with comparisons, memories, and silent expectations. She loved deeply, but that love existed beside insecurity. Every reminder of the past felt like a test she had not studied for, and every small mistake felt larger than it was. Instead of saying, "I am scared of losing my place," her heart spoke through irritation. Instead of saying, "I want to be needed," her voice sounded sharp. Anger is louder than vulnerability, and far easier to express. To admit love is to admit fear, the fear of rejection, of being overlooked, of not being chosen. So anger steps forward, pretending to be strength. It raises its voice where love wants to whisper. It pushes away before love can risk being pushed aside. When she scolded, corrected, or withdrew, it was not because love was absent. It was because love was overwhelmed. She cared enough to feel deeply, and feeling deeply without reassurance can become unbearable. Anger became her language because love had no safe translation. Often, those who love the most struggle the hardest to show it. Their emotions arrive unfiltered, heavy with meaning, and when they don't know how to place them gently, they drop them as frustration. The child saw strictness, not the concern behind it. The family heard tension, not the longing to belong. Love hidden behind anger is still love, beating quietly beneath harsh words and guarded expressions. It watches closely, worries silently, and aches privately. It notices details no one credits it for noticing. It stays awake at night replaying moments, wishing it had spoken differently, wishing it had been understood. Anger, in this way, is not the opposite of love. It is love that has lost its direction. It is care that feels powerless. It is affection tangled with fear and pride, unsure how to step forward without being hurt again. A wounded heart does not know how to whisper. Pain sharpens emotions, amplifies reactions, and turns simple moments into emotional battlegrounds. When someone has been hurt deeply, their heart learns to speak loudly, not to cause harm, but to make sure it is heard. Silence once ignored them, so now their feelings arrive with force. For the stepmother, wounds were not visible, but they were constant. She carried the quiet grief of entering a life already written, a story where she was an addition rather than the beginning. Every smile shared before her arrival, every memory preserved in photographs, reminded her that love had existed without her. That realization did not kill her love, it strained it. It made her sensitive to every tone, every glance, every unspoken comparison. When she reacted strongly to small things, it was not the moment itself that hurt her, but everything it represented. A careless word reopened old doubts. A forgotten acknowledgement felt like confirmation of her fears. Her heart, already bruised, responded as if defending itself from another wound. The louder she sounded, the deeper the pain beneath it. Pain demands attention. When it is ignored, it grows restless. It pushes emotions to the surface, forcing others to notice what has long been buried. The stepmother's raised voice, her impatience, her rigid control were not signs of cruelty, but signs of exhaustion. She had been strong for too long without being understood. A wounded heart also struggles with trust. It questions kindness, suspects intentions, and waits for disappointment even in moments of peace. Because once broken, the heart remembers how easily happiness can disappear. So it prepares itself, reacting quickly, sometimes harshly, believing it is safer to be loud than to be vulnerable again. The child and the world around her heard anger, but they did not hear the memories that shaped it. They did not hear the silent questions she asked herself at night, wondering if she was truly wanted or merely tolerated. Her heart spoke loudly during the day because it was unheard in the quiet. Pain reshapes communication. It replaces softness with urgency, patience with defensiveness. The wounded heart does not seek to dominate, it seeks relief. It raises its voice not to overpower others, but to protect what little peace it has left, to shield itself from another break, to survive in a space where love feels uncertain. Stepmotherhood rarely begins with celebration. It begins in the quiet space left behind by absence, change, and unfinished grief. Before love has a chance to grow, loss has already taken root. Someone has been lost, a family has been altered, and new bonds must form in the shadows of what once was. For the stepmother, love does not arrive first, responsibility does. She steps into a life shaped by memories that are not hers. The walls hold echoes of another woman's laughter, another way of caring, another version of family. Even when no one speaks of it, the presence of the past is felt in routines, traditions, and the way a child clings to familiar comfort. The stepmother does not only inherit a role, she inherits comparison. Her loss is invisible but heavy. She loses the chance to be the first, the only, the unquestioned source of maternal love. She loses the simplicity of building a family from the beginning. Instead, she must build love on ground already marked by grief, loyalty, and longing. Every act of care risks being misunderstood, every boundary risks being seen as rejection. Love in stepmotherhood must pass through patience. It cannot rush or demand acceptance. It must wait, proving itself slowly while respecting the love that came before it. This waiting can feel lonely. The stepmother gives without knowing when, or if, her love will be returned. That uncertainty becomes its own kind of loss. The child, too, carries loss, and the stepmother feels it even when it is unspoken. She knows that love offered too quickly can feel like betrayal, and distance can feel like coldness. Walking this line is exhausting. She must love without replacing, guide without overstepping, and care without claiming ownership. Before love can soften the relationship, grief must be acknowledged. The stepmother grieves her imagined family, the ease she hoped for, the natural bond she thought love would automatically create. This grief does not mean she lacks compassion, it means she is human. It means she is learning to love in a space shaped by emotional complexity. Stepmotherhood asks for a love that is patient enough to survive rejection, strong enough to respect boundaries, and gentle enough to honor the past while still believing in the future. It is love that grows slowly, watered by effort rather than instinct, tested by silence rather than reassurance. Healing does not start with blame or correction, it begins with understanding. When love is judged, it closes in on itself, becoming defensive and distant. When love is understood, it feels safe enough to soften. For the stepmother, judgment came easily, from others and from herself. Every mistake was magnified, every moment of frustration labeled as proof of failure. Yet no one paused to ask what emotions were driving her actions. Understanding requires looking beyond behavior and into intention. Her anger was visible, but her fear was not. Her strictness was noticed, but her constant effort went unseen. She was judged for what she expressed, not for what she endured. Without understanding, her love had no room to breathe. When someone is constantly judged, they stop explaining themselves. They retreat inward, believing their feelings are invalid or unwelcome. The stepmother learned to carry her struggles quietly, masking confusion with control. Judgment hardened her, while understanding had the power to soften her. She did not need approval, she needed to be seen. Love that is understood feels lighter. It no longer has to defend itself. When the child or the family began to see her not as an intruder but as a person navigating unfamiliar emotions, space opened for healing. Small shifts in perspective changed everything. A raised voice became a sign of overwhelm, not cruelty. Distance became uncertainty, not rejection. Understanding does not excuse harm, but it explains it. It allows conversations to replace assumptions. It creates room for growth instead of resentment. When love is met with curiosity rather than criticism, it transforms. The stepmother could finally speak without fear of being misunderstood, and in being heard, she learned to listen as well. Healing also required understanding her own heart. She had judged herself harshly for not fitting the ideal image of motherhood. Once she accepted that love can look different, imperfect, and still be real, she began to forgive herself. Self-understanding eased the pressure she carried and allowed her love to become more patient. When love is understood, walls fall naturally. Defenses relax. Emotions settle. Healing does not arrive dramatically. It unfolds quietly through empathy, patience, and shared humanity. The stepmother's anger softened not because she was corrected, but because she was finally understood, and in that understanding, love found the safety it needed to grow. Anger often appears rigid and unmovable, but beneath it lies something fragile that longs to be handled gently. Compassion has the power to reach what arguments cannot. When anger is confronted with resistance, it grows stronger, but when it is met with compassion, it begins to loosen its grip. For the stepmother, anger was not a choice, it was a response shaped by uncertainty, fear, and emotional fatigue. Compassion does not demand immediate change. It listens first. It observes without rushing to label. When someone finally looked at her anger without hostility, something shifted within her. She was no longer defending herself, she was being understood. That understanding did not erase her struggles, but it made them feel less isolating. Anger thrives in loneliness. It feeds on the belief that no one cares enough to see beyond the surface. Compassion interrupts that belief. A gentle question, a moment of patience, or a simple acknowledgement of effort can soften emotions that once felt uncontrollable. The stepmother's anger began to fade not because she was told to be calmer, but because she felt less alone in her struggle. Compassion also allowed space for mistakes. Instead of reacting defensively, she could reflect. Instead of raising her voice, she could pause. Being met with kindness made self-awareness possible. She could see her own reactions without shame, and that awareness became the first step toward change. The child's compassion mattered just as much. When the child responded with curiosity instead of fear, with openness instead of resistance, the emotional distance between them began to shrink. Compassion turned tension into connection, replacing suspicion with trust. Small acts of kindness softened years of emotional armor. Compassion does not erase anger instantly. It works slowly, reshaping emotional patterns over time. Each compassionate response chipped away at the hardness she had built to protect herself. Gradually, anger lost its purpose. It was no longer needed as a shield. When compassion became consistent, anger had nothing left to guard. The stepmother no longer needed to prove her strength through control. She could show care through gentleness, concern through presence, and love through patience. Compassion did not change who she was, it revealed who she